All right. Oscillators. So, oscillators are one of the fundamental components of video synthesis. They're very imperative to all different types of video synthesis techniques. Um, what is an oscillator? It's essentially a wave that oscillates back and forth, typically at a periodic fashion, meaning that it has a designated time interval where the wave will repeat every time that time interval is uh, passed. And so the four different types of waveforms that we tend to work with as far as oscillators go in video synthesis are the square wave, the triangle wave, sine wave, and sawtooth. And so what you're looking at right now is a square wave plugged into our encoder, and it's actually running at around 60 hertz right now. So that equates to about, hey y'all, future me here. So I'm about to say a bunch of incorrect information about the frequency and corresponding period of the vertical sync rate. So I'm going to say that 60 hertz is 1 cycle per second, but it's in fact 60 cycles per second, or about 1 cycle every 0.167 seconds. So not that important, but for these purposes. But I just wanted to come in quick and correct that. 1 cycle per second, because hertz is a measure of frequency, and it's essentially the inverse of the time that the oscillator takes to complete 1 cycle, also known as the period, as previously described. And so, why don't we take the range of the oscillator down here? So we'll go into the slowest frequency regime that we have available. And so, this is the lowest possible frequency that can be generated on this particular oscillator module. And since it's a square wave here, you'll see that it is turning the screen on and off, uh, corresponding to how a square wave just has those hard edges, just goes hard on, hard off, right? If you were to look at a sine wave, on the other hand, you'll see that you start to get that fade in and fade out. That same way, a sine wave has those um, tapering off edges as they come up to the peak of the wave. Triangle wave and sawtooth. There's a sawtooth is a ramp. It goes all the way up to brightness and then back down to black. So let's go back to our square wave. And so right now we're on at quite a low frequency. So that's it translates as just full color when the wave is at the peak of the wave, and full black at the bottom of it. And so if we move into a faster frequency regime, we see it's flickering a little faster now. But we'll take the frequency even higher here as we start to get into what's known as the audio rate regime. So here, we're looking at a wave of around 60 hertz. And how do I know it's 60 hertz? Because that is the vertical refresh rate of the. In this video, I'm going to keep using the term sync and refresh rate kind of interchangeably. And for the purposes of this video, it shouldn't make a big difference. Just assume that I'm speaking about sync each time. In reality, there are some nuances and differences between the two, but we won't get too deep into that right now. TV. So essentially, the TV is drawing a full vertical frame of picture the rate of 60 hertz. And 60 hertz equates to a period or a wave cycle of about 1 second. And so what that translates to on the screen is you get half the screen white, half the screen black. Um, and it's scrolling a little bit because it's not perfectly locked into the same frequency as the vertical refresh rate of the screen. But a nice thing about LZX video synthesis is that you can lock it into that range, and that's known as syncing the oscillator with either the horizontal or vertical sync of the TV, so to speak. And so we'll do that first. We'll try syncing to horizontal. Now you see that it stays stabilized as the wave is only oscillating at the rate of the vertical refresh rate of the TV. And so that's what a square wave of approximately 50% duty cycle will look like synced to your screen. You know, you get half the screen black, half of it white. Sine wave, you start to get those softer edges as it's kind of tapering off to the top of the wave. Triangle wave looks pretty similar. And then your sawtooth wave. And here, sawtooth is showing more than one cycle, but if this was just one cycle on the screen, that's about what it would look like. Now, let's go back into that free scrolling frequency regime here, because I want to show you what it looks like once you get past that original 60 hertz. Once you start to go a little faster, it gets crazy until you start to get into multiples of your vertical refresh rate. So now we're close to 120 hertz here, and that equates to 2 bars on the screen. You're splitting up the screen twice. You're getting 2 cycles per vertical vertical picture displayed, so to speak, I guess. Keep going here. Got 3, 4, 5, and then this is about the top of this frequency regime on this oscillator. And this is still considered audio rate, because if you were to listen to this oscillator on a speaker, you would be able to hear it, hence the term audio rate. But what the thing about video signals is that once you get into actually displaying information that's a full picture, you need a lot higher frequency signals, and that is known as the video rate regime. So in a free scrolling sense, it starts to get a bit glitchier looking, but if you were to really slowly sweep through these frequencies, you see that rotation there. That's us getting close to the horizontal sync rate of the TV. What I should have actually said here is that we're getting to a multiple of the horizontal sync rate. If we were just at the horizontal sync rate, we would just see one horizontal or one vertical bar on the screen. The same way when we were at the vertical sync rate, we saw one horizontal bar on the screen. You see, I can't really get quite there, the horizontal sync rate, because it's a much higher frequency. So, it's hard to, the spatial resolution of the knob that I'm turning here is relative to the amount of frequency here is much less. So, I'm just kind of sweeping right past it. But fortunately, we can also sync to the horizontal refresh. And so what that looks like here is some vertical bars. Look at our sine wave again. So the character of the bars is similar as we looked at previously. The only difference now is that it's synced to a horizontal sync, and that corresponds to vertical bars. If we were back on syncing to vertical sync, it would look like horizontal bars. And so it's kind of the basics. Okay, last desaturated freeze frame of the video, I promise. Something I didn't really discuss in this video and I thought would be important to cover is that the reason that the vertically synced information is more audio rate and more low frequency is because the actual brightness of the picture has to change way less frequently because the nature of a TV is drawing lines from left to right. So it only has to change every few lines, so to speak. Whereas when you're changing the brightness information of a vertical bar, it has to change brightness multiple times in one line. So it requires much higher frequency information to drive the TV that way. Of oscillators, just to kind of give you a sneak peek of what the future is going to look like, I'll show you what it looks like when you modulate some of these oscillators. So what we'll do is we'll send a vertically synced oscillator from our first oscillator out of here. Let's do a sine wave. And we'll send that into the frequency modulation input of the oscillator that we're looking at on the screen right now. Right now, the knob that controls that frequency modulation is at 0, so you can't see anything. But as I start to turn it up, you'll see that horizontal oscillator coming in as frequency modulation. We'll turn that one, not horizontal, vertical oscillator coming in as frequency modulation. I'll turn it down a little bit so it's a little easier to see. So our output here is a triangle wave, and it's being modulated by a sine wave. And that's kind of what it manifests at. If we were to change this to triangle wave to modulate it, you see you get kind of those sharper edges, sharper changes on the modulation. Go to sawtooth, square wave, and yeah, that's sort of just a sneak peek of what we're going to get into in the future. And I think what we'll talk about next is a little bit more into frequency modulation and the generation of shapes. Stay tuned.